It's not object in head. I don't think I'll do that. Okay. My pranams to all Atma Jyotis, divine light of self. Today let us contemplate on teachings of Mahavakya, or the great sayings of Upanishad. We'll continue with the thought process of Sri Atmananda Krishnamayan. Now let us inquire into our waking state experience. Okay. In waking state experience, okay, the consciousness is identified with the object. The consciousness and the object are joined together. There are various experiences. Okay. I see something, I hear something, I touch something, I smell something. If you look very closely, these are activities of the body and mind. Okay, activities, actions of the body and mind. Right? The actions can happen kaya, vacha, manasa, buddhya. Kaya means physically, vacha means mentally, vacha means verbally, manasa means mentally, and buddhya means intellectually. There are 4 different types of actions possible. Okay. When I walk, when I do something, there's a physical action. Right? The action has a limitation. You act for some time and there's inaction. Action followed by inaction. Action followed by inaction. Right? I cannot keep doing something all the time with the physical body. I cannot keep walking. I have to take rest. Action is there, inaction is there. Action and inaction is the nature of activity. Are we clear? So I say I am walking, I am resting. Okay. When I am walking and when I am resting, I am walking, I am associated with the body. I is associated with the body, and I am resting, I associated with the rest. So what has changed is the position of the activity of the body has changed. But I has not changed. I principle has not changed. Are you able to notice that? The activity can change. Activity can be one activity or other activity. Activity can be followed by inaction. But the I principle does not change. It is there, present in action and inaction. Without understanding the nature of the self, we are mixing up the activity with the activity with the self. The self is joined with the activity. But if you look closely, there is no activity for the self. Because self is same in movement and not movement. The activity is always related to the body, the physical activity. Right? Movement, dancing, walking, all these things are related to the body. So I say I am walking, I am dancing. What we are doing is I am principle, I am mixing up with the walking. The walking cannot go on forever. Walking, there should be a period of rest. So I am resting. But I am, nothing has happened, no change has happened in the I am. The I principle, there is no change at all. Right? Unconsciously, we are mixing up the I principle, the I am with the body, which is activity. Okay. So activity goes on, and sometimes there is rest, sometimes there is no activity. But the knowing is not an activity. I know there is I know when I'm walking. I know when I'm resting. The knowing principle doesn't change. Knowing principle is not an activity of the self. Knowing principle is the nature of the self. Knowing is not an activity. The witnessing is not an activity. Activity has a beginning and end. The witnessing is a continuous process. Witnessing doesn't stop at any point of time. Can you notice that? You are aware when you are not eating. You are aware when you are eating. Okay. You are aware when you are awake. You are aware when you are asleep. In deep sleep, you are aware of the absence of any other activity. So the awareness or knowing principle is unchanging in all the states. Are we clear? So knowing is not a function of the mind. Knowing is the function of the self. Knowing is going on continuously in all the states, whether the mind is present or mind is absent. In the deep sleep, there's no mind, but there's knowing that there's no mind. The knowing principle or awareness is there all the time. In deep sleep also, I know that there's nothing. The knowing goes on with or without the mind. Right? So what we are doing is, we are mixing up the activity with the knowing as activity. Knowing also we are doing as activity. Knowing is not an activity. Knowing is my nature. You understand? Knowing is my nature. Knowing principle doesn't separate from me. It is always with me. It is my nature. It's my swarupa. I am of the nature of Gnana Swarupa. I am of the nature of awareness. I exist all the time in the waking state, dream state, deep sleep state, and my awareness is always there with me. I cannot separate myself from the awareness. If I ask a question, do you exist? You say I exist. That means existence. Are you aware? Yes, I am aware. Okay. Can there be awareness without existence? Can there be existence without awareness? Existence and awareness is one reality. They are not two separate entities. Existence and awareness is my nature. Okay. So I am aware in all, I am present in all the activities. The boss, I am the self. Self is present in all the activities. But by mistake, I'm thinking that activities are done, the activities are superimposed on the self. For example, when I'm walking, I say, when the body is walking, I say I'm walking. Really, there are two activities happening. Two things are happening. The body is walking, and I am aware that the body is walking. Right? The walking can stop. Walking cannot go forever. But I am aware that walking has stopped.
Awareness is going forever.
Awareness is continuous. Awareness is not an activity. Awareness is not an activity of the self. Are you able to distinguish that? Awareness is the nature of the self. You have to distinguish between the activity of the self and nature of the self. Activity is done through the body, mind, intellect. Kaya, Vak, Manasa, Buddhya. physically, mentally, verbally, or intellectually. The 4 kinds of activities done. Activity is done by an instrument, but the self is the knowing principle which is present in all the activities. The knowing is not an activity at all. Knowing is my nature. It is like a lamp on the stage. The lamp throws out the light. The actors come and dance. The lamp shows the actors have come and dancing. The actors go, stage is empty. The lamp shows the stage is empty. The lamp is not involved in action. The lamp is not involved in dancing. Lamp is involved only in showing.
Here the lamp is the knowing principle.
The lamp is the knowing principle, which is my own nature. Okay. The knowing principle knows whether the activities are happening or not happening. Whether it's a presence of activity or absence of activity. Right? The presence and absence both are known. But by mistake, the mind superimposes the activity on the self. The self doesn't undergo any changes other than knowing. So this you can see in a beautiful, you can imagine in a, you go to, nowadays there are 4D movies and 5D movies. Okay, 4D movies and 5D movies. You put on the goggles. Okay, it's a virtual reality show. So suddenly you start feeling that you are in space, and suddenly you see that you're on a mountain top and start falling from a mountain top. Okay, nothing is happening to you. The knowing principle, you are the knower. You are the knowing principle. The sense organs are bringing the input, and you feel as if you are falling. There's nothing happening to the knowing principle of self. Whatever actions are happening to the body and mind, nothing is happening to the knowing principle. The body, mind, and instruments. Just like a virtual reality show, where we are experiencing the fall from a mountain, in reality we are sitting and not doing anything. That activity is superimposed on the knowing principle, self, by the sense organs. The exactly same thing is happening with our body-mind complex. The actions are superimposed on the knowing principle. The knowing principle or the self, which I called as I principle, is not at all affected by any activity. And knowing is not an activity. Knowing is a continuous process. The knowing is my nature. That's called awareness. That's called self. Self is awareness. So you should separate, you should understand the distinction between knowing and doing. Doing has a stop. Doing is followed by non-doing. But doing and non-doing, this both doing and non-doing, the self is involved as the awareness principle. Awareness is knowing. There's no stop to knowing at any point of time, whether the body is there or body is not there, mind is there or mind is not there. In deep sleep, body is not there, mind is not there. The knowing principle doesn't stop working because it's your nature. You cannot stop your nature, the self nature. And that's called awareness, or that's called chit, consciousness. Is this clear? And this knowing principle, when it operates through different instruments, the world appears as different. The objects appear as different. When the knowing principle operates through sense organs, eyes, we see the world as form. When the knowing principle operates through the ears, we see the world as sound. These are different instruments. Eyes are different instruments, ears are different instruments. When you use the different instrument, the world is seen differently. The same thing happens. When you use a red goggle, the world appears red. When you use a pink goggle, the world appears pink. World is neither red nor pink. Your instrument of viewing gives a perspective of what you see. So the world is seen as forms when you see through eyes. World is seen as sound when you hear through ears. Right? World is seen as a touch when you use the body or the skin. World is seen as smell when you use the sense organ called nose. But you are none of these. You are just knowing principle, which is knowing the world through these sense organs. Knowing principle, nothing is happening, no change is happening. Is this clear? You use a microscope, you see the bacteria, you see the virus with the microscope. You use a telescope, you see the galaxies. The instrument is changed, the world way it appears, it changes. The appearance of the world changes. But the one who is seeing it, there's no change. The seer. The seer is you. The seer is the consciousness. Seer is the awareness. There's no change in the seer. Depending on the instrument which you see, there is a different perspective. Correct? So when you see the world through five sense organs, world appears as five different forms. Now these sense organs are very limited in nature. Each sense organ has a very limitation. Your eyes have very limited. Compared to the eyes of an eagle, your eyes have very limited bandwidth. Compared to the ears of a bat, your ears are very limited. Each of our sense organs is very limited. So with this limited sense organs, we are trying to make a sense of the world. So what we see there, out there, is not the world, but what our sense organs are seeing. We have never seen what reality out there. What we are seeing, only what our sense organs are showing. So what reality out there is conditioned by our sense organs. Is this clear? A person who is colorblind will never see a world which is with colors. So these sense organs are like five blind men trying to give us the input, whatever input, and that input is useful. But I have to distinguish between the sense organs and activity of sense organs and the seer of that, the knowing principle who is using this, who is knowing this. The knowing principle is I principle, Atma, the Sakshi, the witness is the knowing principle. It's the continuous awareness of what's going on with whatever sense organs, whatever the instruments we have. Through the body, we see the world as objects. Through the mind, we see the world as thoughts. The same world is seen as thoughts. The instrument is changed now. The body is the instrument, I see as an object. The instrument is mind now. It's nothing but thoughts. Right? So now, actually, if you think of anything, America is a thought. If it's through eyes, if you see, America is a place. If you in your mind, America is a thought. So the same word becomes a thought in the mind. Correct? The experience of the world is a sensation in the body. Right? A feeling in the mind. So you are using different instruments, the body, mind, and intellect, to experience the world in different ways. And at the intellectual level, the world is nothing but just an idea. So we are using different instruments continuously, the body, mind, intellect, and experiencing the world or so-called world in different ways. We never know what the world out is there. We can only perceive the world through limitations of these organs, instruments.
Conditioned perception.
There's a conditioned perception we are having of the world. We have never seen a world out there. We have seen what is shown by limited sense organs. Now, the limited sense organs also is what you call sensing, feeling, touching. All these are activities. But I am principle. The I principle is present in all these activities. And I principle is the one which knows, knowing. We are mixing up the knowing principle with the activity of sense organs. Activities come and go, activities stop. But knowing principle doesn't stop. I am the knowing principle independent of these activities of the sense organs or the body. Is that clear? Any doubts? Any questions? Is consciousness is the